From building permits and inspections in the town of Mount Pleasant to the controversy over the Medal of Honor Museum idea, I sit down one-on-one with town of Mount Pleasant Councilmember Joe Bustos for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on the free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. Councilman Joe Bustos, it's so good to see you again.
Well, it's good to see you, Quintin.
I appreciate this greatly. You know, we're sitting here at Mount Pleasant Town Hall, and you were just talking about it. This is basically the first week in January for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's correct. First week back to work.
And I know that you guys have a lot of work here at Mount Pleasant Town Hall, particularly with Mount Pleasant Town Council. Mm-hmm. I want to take you back to December 21st. I know Channel 2 talked to you all, particularly you, about building permits. And the article reads like this in part: Town Council is considering making changes to building regulations for single-family homes in the town. The changes would include both increasing a fee that's charged to builders from $25 to $225, and it also includes stepping up building inspections. The higher fee will be paid for the improved inspections. Why single-family homes? Why Mount Pleasant?
Well, here in Mount Pleasant, because of flooding, we've had a rash or requirement for builders to build the lot up. And when those lots go up, it floods their neighbors. And we had a lot of complaints about that, and we needed to get our inspectors out there to see what's going on before builders put the foundations in the ground. So it's going to require 2 more inspections prior to the permit inspection, and those 2 inspections are going to put more of a burden on the planning staff, and we're going to have to hire a couple of people. Hence the cost has gone up. But in the end, what will happen is we're going to hopefully alleviate that whole thing of the lot being built up so that it floods the neighbors on either side.
Mm. And let me go back to that particular article, because it reads this: the changes would include both increasing a fee that's charged to builders from $25 to $225, and including stepping up building inspections. Mm-hmm. What are those inspections like right now?
Well, you know, we might have an inspector go out once and declare that the site's good for the foundations to go in, but oftentimes things change after that one inspection, and you know, the builders are trying to do the best they can for their clients, and they build it the best they can, but oftentimes it's overlooked that it floods the neighbors. And that's something, because we do have a regulation that says that you cannot have your lot such that it will cause flooding on your neighbor's property. So we have to start checking that now.
And the article goes on to say this: officials say new homes, if they're not constructed properly, can cause flooding onto neighboring homes. Mm-hmm. How many of those homes have not been constructed properly in your mind?
Well, and this goes back to the heart of what we did last October or so. You know, we reduced the amount of impervious surface to 40%. Because you could have a house, and a house is constructed properly, but there's a lot of driveway, a lot of parking pad that's all concrete, and of course when it rains on that, the water runs off and it runs to the street. So now we're asking that some of those driveways and parking pads be constructed of pervious gravel, so that when it rains, the water will soak down into the ground and it won't run off to the street. So it's not that the house was constructed improperly.
Okay.
It's just we're asking now for more pervious surface.
And you also told Channel 2 this quote: this would, before they start pouring the footings, they would actually have been inspected twice to make sure that they're not creating something that's going to flood their neighbors. What else are the neighbors saying about this problem?
Well, you know, as you go around Mount Pleasant, you can see that lots are built up. And that is the primary problem. And when it rains, it runs down to the neighbor's property, and then the neighbors have to have their land built up. So if we have it inspected and make sure that if the lot has to be built up to meet flood requirements, that there's drainage in the lot that will get the water, the storm water, to the stormwater system.
Let me turn to the Honor Museum. Obviously, this has been a couple of weeks since that particular issue came about. Where are you still emotionally with this?
Well, I think everyone in Mount Pleasant wants a Medal of Honor museum. And I'll go out on a limb right now and say we're going to have one. But, you know, the design was not in keeping with the character of Mount Pleasant. It was too high. It didn't meet our zoning rules. And then, quite honestly, Mr. Daniels said he was going to withdraw that submittal, which he did. And we were waiting for it to come back, but he never brought it back. And that's been since April.
What more questions do you have about this from April to right now?
Well, I really don't have any questions. I'm just, you know, we were waiting for him to resubmit the submittal, and he said that he was going to withdraw it. He would bring something back that would be within the zoning and character of Mount Pleasant.
What is that character of Mount Pleasant in your mind?
Well, it's a low country vernacular, one that would fit in the town. You know, that's just like Clemson wanted to do a building in downtown Charleston that was very modern a number of years ago, and they just said absolutely no, we're not going to have it. And I think this equates to the same thing.
And I went back on your Facebook page last night, and I remember the article. I believe it was a editorial to the newspaper. I believe Mutual News, and you also said this quote: "One of the often overlooked and seldom discussions and elements of the Metal Museum discussion is the fate of Patriots Point Boulevard. Early in the effort to secure the museum, the town of Mount Pleasant set aside $1.5 million for the movement of the Boulevard. Over $300,000 was spent immediately to secure a design for the Boulevard to be moved to the eastern side of the Cold War Memorial. The town was to hold the balance, about $1.1 million, until construction of the road began. The museum board was to raise and escrow the funds to pay for the remaining costs." Where are we with the costs when it comes to the Patriots Point Boulevard?
Well, obviously they haven't escrowed the money, so in my mind they haven't done anything because they haven't put up their, I think it was about $4 million. So we're holding ours, and we're still holding it.
Simple question: why the politics?
Why the politics of?
This Patriots Point Boulevard and the Metal Museum on it.
Well, the Patriots Point Boulevard, you have to remember, if we were to participate in, and let's say the board
Right.
had their money and Patriots Point Boulevard was moved to the eastern side of the Cold War Memorial, and it was, the Cold War Memorial was moved somewhere else, that would create approximately 4 acres of developable land on Patriots Point. And if the museum wasn't built, but then there was 4 acres of developable land and it was sold or leased to a developer, the town would have participated in creating that land for more dense development.
Any other locations?
No, I think Patriots Point is the proper place for that. And like I say, I think if they had brought a submittal in that was in keeping with all those things that Mr. Daniels said he was going to do, and the wild card in that is how much money they had, because even Patriots Point Boulevard didn't see when they revoked the lease. They didn't see that they had done any fundraising or really could.
Where do we go from here in your mind?
Well, I know there are folks out there who want to build a museum in keeping with Mount Pleasant, and they want to go to Patriots Point.
Yeah.
And I think that effort will work.
Okay.
You know, the one thing that really concerned me was the architect for that initial submittal didn't come down here and look and see where it was going and talk to planning folks to find out what the zoning code said. He just drew it, said, here it is. And, you know, initially, they didn't even, on their website, didn't have the museum in Mount Pleasant. They had it in Charleston.
Let me ask you this. There's so much going on social media about this particular discussion, and even in the newspapers. And obviously there are a lot of facts and a lot of misinformation.
Sure.
Can you separate fact from opinion right now?
I think so.
What is fact and what is opinion right now?
Well, there was a lot of emotional attachment. You know, I'm retired from the Army. I want a Medal of Honor museum here. But, you know, there's also an obligation to the community for this to be done correctly. And in my mind, not paying attention to the zoning ordinances, just coming down and saying it's this or nothing was not the right way to do it. And they withdrew the submittal and said they were going to bring it back, never did. And then they were saying, why aren't you voting on this? Why aren't you approving this? Well, there was nothing to approve.
I know it might be a little too late, but wouldn't it be ideal in some people's mind for that particular board to have some sort of public listening sessions to hear from the community on what they want for the particular museum?
Well, you know, they did have 3 sessions.
Okay.
The foundation did.
Okay.
And all they did was have one that was about 20 feet shorter than the initial submittal.
Okay.
Well, the initial submittal was something around 150 feet, and they brought it down to around 100, but the zoning in that area is only 50.
Right.
And we've talked to people and you know, other museum folks, and you could build a heck of a building for $50 million, and they wanted $150 million, plus escrow costs that they had to put up if they did not build the building, plus the movement of Patriots Point Boulevard. Quite honestly, I think the fact is they couldn't get there from here. The emotional part is everyone in Mount Pleasant wants a Medal of Honor museum.
And let me get back here to Town Center. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is not Town Center. But Mount Pleasant Town Hall. Mm-hmm. But, you know, obviously the mayor's going to be delivering his state of the town address at some point. Mm-hmm. What do you want to hear from the mayor as far as Mount Pleasant in 2019?
Well, I look forward to hearing from Mayor Haney how we're going to continue to work on our infrastructure. We're going to continue to do the best we can for our citizens. We're going to uphold the laws of Mount Pleasant, and we're going to do that as hard as we can.
Councilman Joe Bustos, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. As we said here at Mount Pleasant Town Center, I'm just joking.
That's okay. You need to come back, Quintin.
I'll definitely go do that. But it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you
Anytime.
very much.
You're welcome.
Yep.